There's been a lot of change this season, improvements, if you will, but the season is starting to peter out a little bit and become a bit of a nothing season. Baz says he just wants it over and done with. He doesn't give a fox anymore. I reckon he's lying. This is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. With me is Will Forrest, and it's been 2 long weeks since Villa have played in the Premier League. But of course, it feels like we haven't been away because you have been checking us out on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. You have been on our YouTube channel at Talk of the Trinity. Probably no at required, catching up on all our videos. And, you know, thanks to everybody who's been viewing our World Cup Predictor episode in terms of we dipped our toe into the England squad. We got our crystal ball out. We got all our magical equipment that had been up in the attic for a considerable period of days. And we had a go at predicting our England squad ahead of the World Cup in November. We're going to revisit that nearer the time to see how many of our picks have stood the test of time. But speaking of our picks that haven't stood the test of time, or have they stood the test of time? We did dip our toe into the Premier League predictor just a few short weeks ago, where we also made predictions in terms of European competitions, FA Cup, Champions League, and also who would get relegated, who would come into the Champions League places at the end of the season. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but safe to say some predictions are faring better than others since they have been made. So go and check that out. I mean, in terms of our audio providers, we're on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, Deezer, Geezer, Fabriza. I think Sabrina, we're not allowed to mention that. Lawyers got involved. So you may not be able to find us on Sabrina, but plenty of audio pleasures for you to enjoy all our past episodes, and, you know, stick around for our future ones as well. I mean, in terms of, there's plenty happening between now and the end of the season. We're going to delve into our picks in terms of team of the season later on in the Premier League season, in terms of including the Big Six as self-appointed by them, and also I suppose that would make it the small 14.
Yeah, the better 14.
Yeah, I mean, how many Villa players will get in our team of the season?
Danny Ings. Yay.
Well, you know, kind of case closed for that one. But we've been bringing you all that news in the last couple of weeks, but there has been a few newsworthy items that we'll just go through in no particular order. On the Villa first, friendly last week against Brentford B, 5-1. Played some young players. They look good. Probably not much more to say apart from that, really. It's always nice to win. I mean, I think if it would have been Brentford B5, Villa 1, then I think probably would have heard the alarm bells ringing from Villa Park all the way back down to Brentford. So it was nice for some of them to get a run out. We've had, obviously, Sean Dyche sacked as manager of Burnley. Go and listen to our Premier League predictor, because one of us did predict a Premier League manager who would be sacked before the end of the season. Was it Sean Dyche? Go and find out. One of us, both of us, neither of us, it was both of us, may have predicted Burnley to go down. So is that more likely to happen now they got rid of Sean Dyche? Yes. Is kind of my thoughts on that, you know, in terms of we'll see who they get in to replace him.
I don't think we both did we? I can't remember. Have a listen. I'll have a listen as well.
Yeah, I mean the viewing figures are just going to continue to increase while we figure out our bets.
While we stir that up.
Yep, you know, and there is nothing better than stirring the pot and we do it very well. And speaking of things we do very well, previewing games, because they always stand the test of time in terms of looking ahead to the Premier League action. And we are steaming straight in to the weekend game, Saturday, 3:00, King Power Stadium, Leicester City against Aston Villa. And it seems like, from a Villa perspective, potentially not quite full strength in terms of what we're hearing. We're recording this Wednesday afternoon, so ahead of the pre-match and the post-match press conference of Gerrard. Indications are Nakamba may be fit enough to be considered. Luca Dean probably not, from what we can tell. Maybe out for maybe out the rest of the season, the rumours we're hearing at the moment, but subject to clarification at those press conferences that we haven't heard yet. But speaking of injuries, moving on to our hosts for a little bit before delving back into the Villa pool. Leicester, they've got a few injuries as well. Vardy's out injured. Bertrand's been out injured. They've had a season affected by injuries. For Fofana, I think he's working his way back to fitness now, but they missed him in the first half of the season in particular. Funny old season for Leicester in terms of, at time of recording, because they are due to play on Wednesday night against Everton, I believe, and we're not sure when we're recording what the result was, but it was one of three things. They either won, they drew, or they lost. So, we've got all those bases covered. But ninth in the table at time of recording, may say it's both an underachievement based on what they did last season, but it also seems an overachievement based on where they were perhaps halfway through the season and maybe even a few weeks ago, where there was a little bit of talk about Brendan Rodgers and his. Leicester's season's been summed up by Brendan Rodgers. In terms of earlier on in the season, he was linked with what may be deemed bigger clubs in terms of their managerial positions. Then there was talk about him being potentially on the hot seat because of a dip in form from Leicester. Now he's been back talked about as a saviour again once more, as Leicester continue their march in the Europa Conference League into the semi-finals at time of recording. Bit of a jumble there. What are your thoughts on Leicester, Will?
As you mentioned, a very, very up and down season for them. Wesley Fofana's injury definitely impacted them. Leicester, as you mentioned a few times before, didn't do what they have been doing recently, and that's doing one big sale and bringing a few unknowns in off the money that they've done, with the likes of Tielemans, who's turned out to be class, Soyuncu as well. They brought in countless other players, Castagna, Pereira, people who were known but weren't really in the limelight as much. They catapulted the careers of the likes of Maddison and Vardy, even though he's been there quite a while. But you've got to say that you'd have been expecting Leicester to have been challenging probably that top 7, top 6 this season, regardless of the European commitments, because they've had those before. They've got a lot of very good players. And even with Fofana out injured, you felt that with the signing of Vestergaard, that they'd have enough to carry on in his absence. Vestergaard, and what a great unveiling with the whole Leicestergaard thing that they did for him. But
it was probably the highlight of his Leicester career.
Well,
really.
I was about to say it probably is, because Evans and Soyuncu are in ahead of him, and Evans has been hobbling around on one leg for the good part of 18 months, and he's still in ahead of him. They've obviously had other players who have been injured, and it's affected them a lot. And when you look at Leicester City on paper now, I don't think you fear them as much as you did previously. You alluded to Barnes not having the greatest of seasons this year in our England World Cup squad predictor. I don't think he's done too bad, but a lot of that is based off the fact that he was brilliant against us and he was their best player. Maddison has just been a little rat all season, who's mainly main contributions have been his answers in interviews.
Yeah,
A
he's
lot of the
he's
time.
coming into form now at the right time in terms of their European campaign. But yeah, especially the first half of the season was a bit disappointing, probably.
He's going to come back and bite me on the butt at the weekend. Yep. Ian Acho's not had too bad a season. I think Patson Daka hasn't really done as well as they'd liked, but he probably needs a season to settle. But then you look at some of the other players that they've got, and you don't feel too worried about Ademola Lookman and about Mark Albrighton. Really, they're decent players, but they're not something that should be scaring you to death when you've got the likes of Matty Cash and hopefully Luca Din in your team. I actually think on paper, player for player, if you said who has got the best 11 and you went through it position by position, I actually think you'd have more ticks by our name.
Well, funny you should say that, because you have read my mind. This is going to sound like this was scripted, but it wasn't scripted, because my next question was, I've got up the team from Leicester's last Premier League game away at Newcastle, which they lost 2-1. And I was going to go through their starting 11 and just very quickly, would they get in our team or not? And then being able to transition that nicely onto Villa Chat. So let's go through their team that they played on that day. In goal, Casper Schmeichel.
Well, I do feel sorry for him because of his injury at the start of the season when they played us. I don't think he's been very good this season. So no, I'd stick with Martinez over him.
Yep. I'd have Martinez, but then to be fair, there's not that many goalkeepers in the Premier League who I would have over Martinez, to be honest. I mean, in terms of outside of Liverpool, Man City, funnily enough, even though they got 4 spank past them yesterday, possibly Man United. I mean, De Gea has been a good form this season, but yeah, I mean, we're well stacked in the goalkeeper department. But moving on to their defence there, I'm trying to see, I was trying to get his first name actually, frantically scrambling. James Justin.
I'd have Matty Cash ahead of James Justin at the moment, especially on his form since Gerrard's coming.
I'd say, but he's certainly got potential. I'd say Justin. He had an injury that kind of took him out for most of last season, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I'd have Cash ahead of him as well. I believe in terms of, I wouldn't have had him as a left back, but I think he may have played left back in this game. Luke Thomas.
I'd rather have Luca Din. I think Luke Thomas has got a bright future, and any Football Manager fans out there, Luke Thomas is a great signing. On it this year, I actually signed him myself, so it was like 33 million. But yeah, I think Luca Din I'd go with.
And centre back, we've mentioned their injury issues at centre back, so they had Soyuncu at centre back.
Who else was in defence with Soyuncu?
Amati played centre back in this game.
In that game, I would take Soyuncu and partner him with Mings. That's the first Leicester player I'd take. I wouldn't take Amati.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd probably agree with you there. In terms of, I think you define it as defensive midfield, perhaps. Mendy played defensive mid.
Douglas Luiz is better. I know you want a proper defensive mid. They're different types of players. If you said Mendy or Nakamba, I'd pick Nakamba.
Yeah, I mean, different types of players, all three of them, really. In terms of, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a choice in that pure defensive midfield role, as you said, between Nakamba and Mendy. Toss of a coin there, I'd say. You made the case for both, but because we're biased, we're going to say Nakamba. Yep. So we've mentioned him before, kind of on playing that left wing, kind of left attacking kind of role. Lookman. Does he get in the Villa team?
No.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Don't think he does. In terms of right midfield, well, in terms of just going through in terms of which players actually started this game as opposed to who came on, which is always fun because they had some of their better players on the bench in anticipation of their European game. Perez played right midfield.
No, wouldn't get him from there.
I'd agree. Tielemans plays centre midfield along with Dewsbury Hall.
Tielemans walks into the team. Dewsbury Hall, something off Downton Abbey. Nah, not for me.
And then up front, well, actually, no, I won't go near that joke. Daka played up front.
No, I'd rather have either one of our two.
And then just have a special Brucey bonus round, because all three of their subs we mentioned about 5 minutes ago in terms of Leicester and their season. James Maddison, Harvey Barnes, and Iheanacho came on for Leicester. Any of those get in Villa's team?
I think on their day, all of them get into the Villa team and make the Villa team better. You know, if we went for a formation that worked for Harvey Barnes, where we had a winger, he walks into it. Iheanacho gets into it, partnering Ings or Watkins. Maddison wouldn't get in ahead of Coutinho for me, but if you're going to put him into central midfield, then yeah, you know, he'd probably get his way in there ahead of JJ or McGinn.
Yep. So I'd say in terms of our very unscientific survey concludes, probably about half and half, really, in terms of players. I think in terms of you could say, funny enough, in terms of how it's kind of worked out this season with the injuries. And this is the expert analysis that you have come to expect from Talk of the Trinity podcast. Leicester's injured defence isn't as good as our full strength defence based on that. And you look at it in terms of, you look at it in terms of goal difference. Leicester's is -4 at time of recording, and Villa's is -4 at time of recording. So
yeah, off the back of one game, isn't it? Really, you know, it's disappointing that we let so many goals in against Tottenham, because you know, if we'd lost 1 or 2-0, you could have took that. It's -1, it's -2. The fact that we could have scored 7 or 8 as well and had a plus goal difference says it all. If you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
No. Well, we'll see if we laugh and cry when we move it on to Villa in terms of the Villa preview. Touched upon there in terms of the goal difference. Villa, at time recording, before the Wednesday night game, 15th in the table on 36 points. Looking upwards, only 4 points behind Leicester at time recording, which of course it could be still 4, 5, 7 when you come to listen to this. But just quickly, there's been some, in the week off for Villa, there's been some talk kind of on Twitter about Villa needing to be worried about getting drawn into a relegation battle, having to look over their shoulder in terms of that drop. So at time recording, Villa are 11 points above the drop zone, Burnley in 18th. Realistically, that is 12 points because of the goal difference. Burnley's been -19, so 15 goal swing. I know we are playing Burnley twice, but I wouldn't expect us to lose those games by a combination of 9 goals in order to make that an equal in terms of goal difference. Famous last words where we get banged 5-0 at Turf Moor and this one gets brought back. But I get called, mainly by you, to be honest, negative in terms of sometimes talking about Villa and in terms of my predictions.
It's a pet name.
But, yeah. I think you can't say no chance, because mathematically there is a chance Villa can go down, but I just don't see Villa going down at all. I mean, in terms of, are we going to win many more games? Probably not. That's my negative hat on. Do we need to win many more games to stay up? I don't think so. One will probably get us over the line in terms of, you want to get to 40, but 39 usually does it more often than not. Are you with the negative naysayers thinking Villa have to worry about relegation? Or are you, I mean, literally the sun has come out whilst recording, so I am half bathed in sun, which is quite apt. Half sunny, half dark. Are you coming to the dark side, or are you joining me on the sunny side of preparing for Premier League football next season with Villa?
Premier League football next season with Villa. I think we need to be looking over our shoulders in regards to how low we could finish, whilst I don't think that we'll be below that danger line, and we'll be swapping places with Fulham come the end of the season. it's one of those, it's a bit concerning, really, in many ways, as to how close all the teams around us are when we were further up the league. We've been inconsistent. We know that we've been inconsistent, but as we've said before, Gerrard is getting used to his squad, getting used to his tactics, to his players. Is he playing players for the tactics, or is he defining tactics around the players? It's very much the latter, really, at the moment. I think we return to 4-3-2-1 next season, and I don't think we worry anything like we are at the moment. I would like us to get to those magical 40, 41 points, just to put the minds of other Villa fans at ease, really. And it sounds strange for me to say, but you're not worried at all. So my days, if Baz isn't worried, then there's no need for anybody else to worry. Famous last words. Don't bookmark this. But we need a strong finish to be able to attract quality players for next season. Who's going to want to come and join Aston Villa that have finished 16th in the Premier League, that are saying that they're going to push for Europe? You know, you turn around to Philip Coutinho and tell him that, and he's going to go, yeah, okay. Newcastle are offering me 9 new houses a week to go and join them. Whereas if we're 10th, 11th, 8th, 9th even as well, and you turn around to Coutinho then and say, stay with us, take us forward, you've got a lot more chance of the little man saying, yeah, okay. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you mentioned there in terms of the way Gerrard is setting up the team between now and the rest of the season. How do you think we're going to set up on Saturday? And does it differ to how you want us to set up?
I think for continuity until the end of the season, he sticks with the 4-3-1-2 because he wants to get as high up the league as he can. And the best chance of doing that is with 2 number 9s on the pitch. Ironically, we don't have a number 9, but with those 2 number 9s on the pitch, with Coutinho in the hole, creating for them and then hopefully putting the chances away. Personally, once we get 3 or 4 more points on the board, and I'd hope that we get 3 against Norwich, I'd then potentially go back to playing the 4-3-2-1 at that point and getting Buendia back into the team. If Coutinho's going to stay, keep him in the team. Anybody who we're not sure what's going to happen with their future or they're being non-committal at the moment shouldn't be in that starting 11, really. They should be on the bench at best, with Douglas Luiz being one of them. If Coutinho isn't going to sign, then give Buendia the chance. We want people who want to be at this club playing. Hopefully Coutinho does want to. I've said Coutinho a lot in the last minute, and hopefully Buendia does as well. And then you've got to choose between Ings or Watkins. Which one of them is going to get you the goals or their shots on target, or which one of them isn't going to be jinxed by either you or I?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a few selection dilemmas, if you can call it that, which I just did. So it is a dilemma in terms of the game on Saturday. Do we stick with the 2 up front, as you mentioned? Is it time to start identifying the players who don't want to be at the club next season for whatever reason and gently ease them out of the team? Or do you look at what we alluded to earlier in terms of getting to that 40-point margin as quickly as possible and higher up the table? And you might need some players at 80% might be better than others 100% kind of committed based on some position. So a few challenges for Gerrard ahead in terms of that selection, and especially, we talked about it in the Tottenham review that we put out after the game, funnily enough. A real mixed bag in terms of performance did not necessarily match the result against Spurs, but when things started going wrong, when they went wrong, they went very wrong in terms of some of the defensive displays. But speaking of defensive displays, and we are speculating a bit in terms of who is going to be fit and available on Saturday. Who are you putting into the firing line of trying to stop Leicester's attacking? Well, if they play their full strength attacking team, I fear the fact that this game is Saturday 3:00 means that they probably will play a stronger team than if this game was taking place Sunday afternoon or Monday night. Their game against Roma, first leg semi-final, is next Thursday. That's probably enough time to play 2 games, I'd say. So I'm expecting Maddison and Barnes and potentially in that show, although Daka has had a run in the team recently. I'm expecting the big boys in terms of Leicester to be playing. Who are you sending out defensively to try and stop them?
Well, if he's fit, Luka Din starts at left back. I don't think there's any question about that, really. Matty Cash starts at right back. You've got Emi Martinez in goal. Tyrone Mings at centre back. I'm going about this a very weird way, aren't I? Callum Chambers starts alongside Tyrone Mings for me. I think we've looked at our best recently when Chambers was in the team. I know Conser returned for the Brighton victory, but then he was out against Southampton, out against Leeds. Chambers picked up a knock in one of the subsequent matches. Conser's come back in, and he hasn't quite picked up to his standards of last season yet. My left back position really depends on who plays defensive midfield. I think if Douglas Luiz was to start there, I'd be inclined to put Courtney Hawes at left back if Luka Din wasn't fit, so that you've got 3 players who will at least stay back. They can move across into a back 3 if needed. Matty Cash can bomb forward. And it also gives Ramsey on that left side of midfield a little bit more freedom and creativity. And Douglas Luiz doesn't have to worry about dropping deep as much, really, except to get the ball and try and do Thiago things like Thiago did for Liverpool last night. If Nakamba starts, I feel that you could go with Ben Christian. Young kids have all got to start somewhere. They all have to have a baptism of fire. Again, going back to that match last night, Hannibal for Man United went on. He relished it. He was crunching and munching and living up to his name.
Yeah, he was, but I suppose there's a little difference between starting and coming off the bench in terms of the last 10, 20 minutes as Hannibal.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter, as nobody's probably called him ever before, did for Man United.
Yeah, without doubt, there's a difference to that. But we've seen other young Villa players start matches before and do very well when they've been thrown in. Remember a young Gareth Barry starting at left centre back because David Unsworth went back to Everton. Lee Hendry. Lee Hendry's first match, I think he got sent off away at QPR, didn't they? After coming on as a sub. Maybe, but you get my drift. Jacob Ramsey has been starting more games than he has been coming on in games, and that's the same for the last season as well. So I think it's fair to put him in if you play Nakamba as defensive mid so that he can drop in and Mings can move across. And who better to have alongside him in that Villa team than your leader who don't stop going on all game. He's going to have Mings talking to him all game long. He's going to spend half the game in front of Gerrard as well and the coaches. So I'd be very inclined to start with. Well, actually, I would start with Chris M because Nakamba starts for me.
You expertly predicted my next question in terms of that midfield predicament.
It is not scripted. Is that so scripted?
Certainly says something in terms of what our lawyers tell us anyway. But in terms of that midfield 3, then, if you have that team, or maybe not even a midfield 3, if you have that blank piece of paper which says team sheet at the top, who are you putting in that midfield?
JJ gets in. As much as I say he needs a rest, JJ gets in. He's had 2 weeks off. He's fine now. And I think for the moments of magic that he produces, some of his goals have been outstanding, as of his runs, such as the one against Tottenham, where Lloris, I think he hit him rather than he saved it. But, Hugo can tell me otherwise.
Instinctive, got his arm up. It was just an instinctive movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in terms of top goalies. Those instincts mark them as different to good goalies. But yeah, most other goalies in the league, that's sailing into the back of the net.
Fine margins, isn't it? And then the other one, you know, I really want to keep banging that drum, doing my Whitey, Tony McCarroll, Ringo Starr, Zach Starsky impression. Can't think of many others, Dave Grohl impression, and go with Sanson. However, it is a Midlands derby, and I'm very hopeful that Stephen Gerrard's going to be in the dressing room going, come on, we've got to show that we're the top dogs in the Midlands. You know, we lost to Wolves not that long ago. Let's go and beat Leicester again. Let's do the double over them. And the one person you need in there for the blood and thunder and flashes of brilliance going forward every now and again. And I can see your little face lighting up here, John McGinn.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I agree. In terms of that midfield three, the Canberra, Ramsey, McGinn, I think that has the right balance in terms of what Leicester are going to bring from an attacking perspective. So, providing they're all fit, then yeah, that's the midfield three I would pick as well. So, going foot first, like Hannibal when he came on for Man United on Tuesday, into that front three. Who's your front three?
Well, Nakamba's inclusion not only helps Ben Crishen and the rest of the defence in regards to, and midfield in regards to the defensive work he does. I don't think we appreciate how much of an impact he has, really. Though maybe we do, because we've been crying out for him for weeks now. It gives little Phil a lot more freedom to drop deep, get on the ball, play closer to the strikers. So Philip Coutinho starts for me, and that's very slack on Emi Buendia. I think if Coutinho isn't doing it after an hour, then you bring Buendia on for longer. Yep. And the other two, you go with Watkins and Ings, because despite them missing chances against Tottenham, they were in the positions to have the efforts. And against this Leicester defence, as we pointed out already, you've got to throw two at them. You've got to throw two strikers at them. Get them worrying about Coutinho. Who's going to mark him? Mendy? Yeah, probably. But then it creates other gaps in midfield, or it pulls him about all over the place. Soyuncu marking Watkins. Watkins hopefully getting the better of him for pace. And then Ings up against whoever the other defender turns out to be. Evans. So, you know, we go it that way, and we have two up front. And hopefully we can get a result against them.
Well, I agree with you in terms of the front three. And see if we can keep this hot streak of agreement going. You mentioned the result. What are you predicting the result to be?
Oh, well, I'm going to take you on a little trip down memory lane. Not too far, because I don't remember all of it myself. But many years ago, not long after the Walker's Bowl King Power Stadium was created, we had a little bit of League Cup action. If you remember, Gareth Barry thumping in a penalty or two, Gabby Agbonlahor nicking a late winner and then legging it all the way down to the Villa fans. Great night. I was there. Brilliant night. Leicester did cause us some problems, though. Leicester have always been a little bit of a bogey team, none more so than the 4-4, if you know. Yep. You know, oh, my days, one of the worst. I remember it got to 4-1, and my mum said, I know we've just scored and we've gone 4-1 up, but they're going to draw this. And it's like, damn you, mum. Negative mum. No. But I think we snatch it. I do worry about the amount of goals we'll concede. I'm going to go 3-2 Villa.
There you go.
Villa.
Positive Will. And depending on whether or not this is going on YouTube with our full visages, you may have noticed halfway during the course of this recording, due to having to adapt to changing lighting conditions, I had to draw the blinds. So I'm more in the shade now, which probably is quite apt for my score prediction. In terms of the powers of positivity, the powers of negativity, all sorts of light, dark comparisons you can make. I think Leicester will win, to be honest. I think it's going to be 2-1 Leicester. Very dependent on as I alluded to earlier, very dependent on the team that Leicester play. Doing it on the presumption that Maddison, Barnes, Inacho, Tielemans, they play the full strength team. If they play the same team or similar team that they played away at Newcastle, then I can see us getting a point. But we don't have the benefit of seeing the teams. So we're going to go in terms of 2-1 for Leicester. And on the plus side, if you're right, then that's good news for me. And if I'm right, then, well, it's not particularly good news. But, in terms of adds another tick into the hit list of the predictions, which, are probably around the absolutely magical figure of 1 out of every 3 being right, probably, in terms of if the stats were done. So we can head towards, those giddy heights. But as you said, if we're celebrating a last-minute winner, then evidently that will be good news for all Villa fans come about 5:15 on Saturday. But speaking of good news for all Villa fans, you can have that a long time before 5:15 on Saturday by continuing to check us out on Twitter at Talk Trinity. No doubt we'll be posting many a poll and a provocative, suggestive, maybe insulting question or two, perhaps in the build-up to the game. So check us out there. If you are not one of the literal tens of people who are subscribed to the page, then do that. Add yourself to the growing army of people who, some for reasons unbeknownst perhaps to most people, value or listen to our opinions. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. It's on YouTube. We got plenty of other videos we've uploaded throughout the course of the season. Check them out. If you prefer to listen to us on the go or on the comfort of your own sofa, perhaps, then our audio providers at Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Deezer, Fabriza, not Sabrina. They're all there. We're also on FanHub, so you can check us out there, and probably plenty of other places that my co-host will fill you in on in his final thoughts. But from me, thanks very much for listening. And if you're going to the game on Saturday, hope you enjoy it. Hopefully it's the right result for Villa, and that we're all positive wills at the end of the game, celebrating a Villa win. But thanks for listening, and we'll be with you again soon. But I'll pass you over to Will, Mr. Trinity himself, for his final thoughts.
Let's hope we're all positive in a non-COVID way. Thank you for listening to the audios. Thank you for watching the YouTubes. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, just hit subscribe, hit the like, leave us a comment if you want to. Tell us why you agree with negative Baz, or tell us why you think that I'm the best and that I should just keep saying that we'll win all the time. Take a go at the polls. Let us know how crap Tyrone Mings is, if that is what you think. Let us tell us how brilliant he is as well, if that's what you believe, and that is the correct answer. Baz gave you all of the places that you can listen to us. There are some more as well. There's some new places. I Love Radio, I think, is one of them. I could have made that up. Who knows? If I haven't, get the domain in quick. Let us know, and we'll upload to your audio provider. Next week, we'll be reviewing the Leicester City Villa victory. We'll also be looking ahead to beating Norwich and Dean Smith's return. That could very well be our 50th podcast, though it may be 49. We'll have to have a look and listen back to all of them and let us know. We've got no idea. Sabrina was keeping a tab on things, but obviously. But apart from that, as Baz says, we're going to have some season reviews. At some point in the summer, we're going to be looking at the Villa and what we need to do to improve, who it's time to say goodbye to, who we want to lure into our Villa Park clutches. We'll also do a Premier League predictor again, where you'll see Baz puts Villa bottom and Arsenal top, and I just put Villa top and Danny Ings top scorer, top assist, top goalkeeper, top human being. But until then, if you can't get enough of Ings, like me, have a listen. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. I'm Villa till I die. Up the Villa.